my channel, Be Debt Free with Me, where I'm just a girl trying to help you and me become financially free. Today, we're going to talk about budgets. Say it again. Budgets. A lot of people hate budgeting. I hated budgeting, but I learned how to budget, and now I don't hate it so much anymore. Sometimes it does prohibit me from doing the things I would like to do, but then I gotta rewind, remind myself where I'm trying to go, and that I'm trying to build wealth, and that I'm trying to build a legacy for my kids, and I snap out of it real quick. However, today I'm actually gonna walk you through what a budget is, okay? First, the purpose of a budget is to give your money a plan. If your money doesn't know where to go, it'll get lost, okay? It will get lost along the way, and then you won't know where it went. Second, budgets are not terrible. They actually help you see what you actually have. You ever been in that kind of space where you're like, I know I make decent money, so why don't I ever see it? It's because you don't have a budget. A budget helps clear things up. You will find money you didn't think you had. You will find money you knew you lost but couldn't remember where. But today, we are going to walk step by step through the process of doing a zero-based budget. A zero-based budget essentially just says at the end of all your money, it should equal zero. Okay, what do I mean by that? I mean, when you list all of your expenses for the month and you subtract it from what you make every month, it should be zero at the end. And I'll show you how. If you have irregular income, say you get commissions, or you only work part-time, or sometimes you pick up extra shifts, or I'll show you how to adjust for that too. So 1, budgets show your money where to go. 2, they are not terrible. I know for all my free spirits, my spenders out there, a budget can seem like a straitjacket. Believe me, it's not. As a spender myself, who loves to spend money, like I told you guys in my previous video, a budget doesn't have to restrict you. It doesn't have to stop you from living the life that you desire. However, remember what the goal is: to get out of debt. So there may be some modifications, some things you may have to give up that are costing you money. But it's a small sacrifice, a short-term sacrifice for a bigger goal. Always do your budget before the month starts. Not when you get your first paycheck, not halfway through the month. Before the month starts. Why? Because just like when you build a house, you do a blueprint first, and then you get the materials, and then you build the house. It's the same way with a budget. You set a plan first, then you get your money, and then you use that money the way you planned. If you don't do it, you will lose more money than you anticipated. You will spend on things you had no plans on spending on. Trust me, I know. I did it for years, and it was ridiculous. Thousands of dollars spent on fast food, spent on random things that we didn't even think about until the paycheck hit our bank account, and we're like, oh, we have money. But we should have made a plan, okay? Budget before the month starts. It's important. Anyways, I digress. So, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, push the alert button, and let's jump in to doing a budget.
Okay, guys, let's get to it. Here's how you do a budget. First, you need to sit down and calculate how much money you make every month. So your monthly take-home pay. Once you figure that out, you write that number right here. We're going to make up a number and say $4,000 a month. Okay? Then, next, you list your expenses. If you pay tithe is always first. Next, if you don't have a $1,000 emergency fund and you only need $1,000 because it's just supposed to be a cushion between you and a crisis, so if you don't have $1,000, you're going to have a savings line. And next, you're going to put rent because, of course, you need to have a roof over your head. If you don't pay rent, lucky you. Next, you're going to say food because you have to eat. And then you will go with transportation or gas. Or if you take the train or the bus, average out how much you use every month. Look back at your last bank statement and see how much you spent, and then figure out what the average amount is that you spend on transportation every month. Then, if you have other expenses, you'll list those as well. So I'm just gonna use a few for my life: childcare, hair care. Both my husband and I are locked, so we alternate going to the loctician, so every other month one of us looks decent. Next, our other expenses would be utilities. That should actually be higher up on the food chain because that kind of goes in with your rent. We also pay for our phones, car insurance, we also pay life insurance, and we have what we call king and queen funds, but we're going to say they are pocket money. Okay, and then we pay any bills that fit in our budget. So first, if you're paying student loans, of course, put your student loans on the line. If you have a car payment, you can add that as well. And anything else that applies to your life. So once you've listed your expenses, you start writing down how much they actually cost. Now you're going to start subtracting. So if you pay tithe, it's going to be minus $400 because it's 10%. So that leaves you with $3,600. For savings, let's say we don't have our $1,000 saved, so we're going to put aside $100 because that's what we can spare towards our $1,000. And you keep putting away what you can until you get to your $1,000, which will leave us with $3,500. In a perfect world, we're going to say there's $1,000 worth of rent, so that leaves us with $2,500. For groceries, our family of 5, we spend about $400 a month on groceries, $100 a week, so that will leave us with $2,100. Transportation, if you have 2 cars or you travel a lot, let's average that out to about $300. That would leave us with about $1,800. And as you can see, you're simply going down the list until you run out of money, okay? In another perfect world somewhere far in the galaxy, childcare is only $800. So we're going to subtract that $800. Leaves us with $1,000. We're getting closer to the end of our list. So let's go hair care. And let's say that's at least $80. We subtract that as well, and that leaves us with $920. Utilities, let's do a round figure. Let's say it's electricity, gas, which is what most people pay. Unless you have a house, then you also pay a water bill. But we're going to go with the electricity and gas just for instructional purposes. So, for utilities, let's say $150, which leaves us with about $770. Okay, guys, we're getting to the end. Phones, we all know our phones are expensive. Who pays for them cash anymore? I do own my phone now, but I did do the payment plan as well. Right now our bill's about $120, so I'm going to use that as the number. That leaves you with about $650. I hope I'm doing that math right. Then we're going to subtract car insurance. Now, it could be higher for you if you have a car payment because, of course, you have to have comprehensive and liability. But I'm going to just use liability and say that it's $150, or I'm going to round it out and say it's $150. That leaves us with how much? About $500. I believe. Yeah. Okay, life insurance. This is important, especially if you don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars set aside. If you pass away and you have a family depending on you, it's supposed to replace your income should you die an untimely death before you planned on it or anyone expected it. And until you can self-insure, it's really great to have life insurance. And I would suggest getting term life as opposed to whole life. I'll explain later in another video someday maybe why I believe in term life as opposed to whole life. So right now mine is about 50, so I'm going to use that as a number. And mine is only that high because I have a pacemaker, so I am high risk for them to insure. Now, pocket money is super important to us, my husband and I, because, like I said, I'm the spender. I love to spend money, and if I don't have it, I end up messing up the budget. So, because you know you're going to spend, you give yourself a little wiggle room to spend some money on whatever it is you want, okay? So, for us, we do $50 a month per person, which leaves us with about $350. We're almost to the end. Let's say in a perfect world, or maybe if you're on your income-based repayment plan right now, the student loan amount is only $100. All right, so you've got about $250. That's just enough, and for your car payment. But let's go back to that perfect world we live in, and let's only pay $100 for our car payment. And that would be $150. So now we've got this number here at the end, this $150 left over. Now what you are supposed to do, if you don't have your $1,000 emergency fund just yet, put this money to your savings. If you do have your $1,000 starter emergency fund, let's be clear, $1,000 won't protect anybody from any major catastrophe. But eventually, once you've paid off debt, you're going to sock away at least 6 months worth of expenses. But for now, if you don't have your $1,000, move that $150 right into your savings and sock that away just a little bit faster than you expected this month. If you have your $1,000, you take this $150 and you pay your smallest debt. So this is it, folks. It's super simple. It's simply just writing down everything that you have. And then the key is this. Stick to the budget. If you only have $400 for groceries, once you've spent the $400, if you spend the $400 in the first 3 weeks, because of its food, you can adjust it, but try your best to keep yourself within the $400 you've allotted for yourself for the month. So this is how you do a budget. It's super easy, super simple, but it's hard to stick to. So now I did want to talk a little bit about people who have irregular income. If your income fluctuates based on the hours you work, or if you work in sales or commissions, still do this. The only thing is, instead of still do this, just budget for this number should be your lowest month. What's the lowest you've ever earned in a month? Use that number. Now, if you make extra after when you finally get paid, or you make more throughout that month, simply go down your list. Say with you budgeting for your lowest month, you only were able to reach this point in your budget. Now, with the extra cash you have, you do the same thing. You subtract, say you make an extra $1,000, you write that $1,000 at the bottom of the list, you make a second list, and you just subtract the things that you were missing, which would be car insurance, life insurance, pocket money, student loans, car payment. And you just subtract until you have spent that $1,000. If by any luck you get to pay off a little more extra debt, that's also great too. So, yeah, this is a budget. It's super easy. Stick to the amounts that you have set for yourself, but also it's a learning process. So give yourself grace. If this month you set aside 400, but you ended up spending 450 or 500, that's okay. Just adjust that budget. If you spent 400 in food and groceries, that means the extra money has to come somewhere out of your budget. When you budgeted here, you put this 150 to this 150, so we're gonna take this 150, okay, and it became 0 because we put that extra to our savings or that emergency fund. So now you're at 0. So if you spent an extra 50 here, then that 50 has to come out of somewhere in this budget. So you have to, whether it is you take it from, let's see, where can we take it? Take it from your savings, how much you were going to put to savings. So now you can only put an extra 100 to your savings, and that 50 goes to your groceries. Always check in with your budget. Remind yourself how much you've spent. Remember the number that you said you were going to spend, and just kind of keep track. If you have to write it down, or come back to the sheet of paper or the spreadsheet that you've created for yourself, that's great. Checking in throughout the week is a great way to make sure you're still on track for the month. Okay, guys, well, that's the very first budget. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below in the comments, and I will answer them as best I can. Congrats, you've walked through your first budget.
Look at you, you've made it through your first budget meeting. That's what my husband and I call when we come together and talk about our money. I really hope that was clear for you and that it made it just a little easier for you to sit down and write out a plan for your money for the month of February and for all the months to come. If you don't have a partner or a spouse or someone who you share financial responsibilities with, find an accountability partner, a friend who's pretty decent with money. Spenders, don't go find another spender to do this with. It's not going to work out. It's the blind leading the blind, okay? Find someone you know is responsible, who will keep you accountable, and just make sure they remind you to do your budget. Run big purchases by them, the same way you would do if you were in a relationship. I really, really hope that this made it a little bit easier and a little less scary for you to do a budget every month. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down below in the comments. I've got answers for you. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you back. Like, subscribe, set the alert button, and meet me back here for more tips and tricks on how to be debt-free with me.